wanted to make this little video. I saw a short video from Rabbi Aaron Ruvain, and he said, what's the biggest threat to the Jewish community today? He says the missionary threat. And there's a lot of emotions there, It's definitely an interesting subject, ever since I was a kid, growing up listening to Tuvia Singer, all this, and having Jerry Siegel, who's much more of a serious scholar than Tuvia Singer, who's more of an entertainer, although he's also a scholar, but Jerry Siegel is really the more authentic scholar there. A lot of things Singer just got out of Mr. Siegel's works, and Mr. Siegel's my social studies teacher in high school. That's we always had I've always been very fond of him, and I think he's been fond of me, although maybe he's not always happy with the things I have to say, which is fine. That's how Yiddishkeit is, and I definitely agree with Rabbi Ruvain that the missionary issue is a major problem. But we have to ask ourselves, is it really as bad as he says it is? And there's just this knee-jerk reaction, and also this reaction that is trying just to be. I'm trying to think of an adjective here. It's like this piece, and it's just not perfect. Are we still filming? Yeah, we're still on. Let's see. I thought this is going to be right. So how do we do this? First of all, let's put this back on. So how do we? So we open it up like this. Let's put it in there and close it up, and then maybe we go like this. Well, we already started the video like this. All right. There we go. All right. And that's actually better, isn't it? So he's saying that the missionary threat is the worst thing, and it's just this hyperbole and also this sensationalism. It's like, oh, this was already predicted 4,000 years ago, Yaakov Avinu, Jacob, and like, wait a second, Yaakov Avinu wasn't 4,000 years ago, it was more like 3,700 years ago, but that's, alright, maybe that's nitpicking, I don't know, maybe less, 3,500 years ago. Alright, fine, but, and a thing we all know, Hatzileni mi'ad Esav, save me from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esav. But what it neglects, and what really I think is I wasn't really thinking of saying this, but sometimes when I'm making videos, thoughts come in that I realize have to be said. Why do we have a missionary problem? And when I say missionary problem, I mean specifically people like Rabbi Ruvain said, and I agree with him, that offer false advertising. If someone wants to sell Christianity, more power to them, I believe. I mean, the thing is, let's put that. But let's truth in advertising. You're selling Christianity, you call it Christianity. You're selling Islam, you call it Islam. You're selling Buddhism, you call it Buddhism. That's how it is. That's how it's supposed to be. You want to sell Judaism, you call it Judaism. Now, that being said, I don't really have an issue, though, believing personally in a libertarian Jeffersonian approach, classical liberal approach. I recognize that, I remember when I was a kid, I was at something with Tuvia Singer, and like, Jewish lady, she's like, oh, we got to get the government to stop these people, because it's false advertising. And he's like, well, no, what are you, crazy? Like, at least he had the sense. He's like, I don't want, this Clinton was president, and he's like, I don't want Clinton involved with this. People got upset that George Bush Jr., he went to some messianic Jewish thing, and he shouldn't be upset. There's freedom of religion, and we have to recognize that there is a large community like this. But the main thing, though, is that it's most of the Messianic Jewish community, and what they call Messianic Judaism, which is really a form of Christianity for the most part, 99% of it is just a form of Christianity. There is that 1% of it that's perhaps misguided form of Judaism, which is very small, but it could be bigger, and maybe should be, because then it's a stepping stone into the truth. But again, there's this sense that Kiruv professionals have that they have bias over every Jewish soul, which is wrong. They don't. There is a concept of Kol Yisrael Ravim Zealous, absolutely. We don't have bias. We don't own every Jew. We have responsibility to try to help other Jews, but there's a limit to that. That has to be taken in a normal and intelligent way. But we don't have bias. We don't. It's the same thing. All these people going crazy about, the heter that the Trump family had about flying on Shabbos and this and that. So that being said, and like I discussed in another video, they left before Shabbos, they arrived after Shabbos. There was no Chilul Shabbos involved. There was no Issur D'Rabbanan involved because it was a Bar Mitzvah. In general, you have to leave on a ship 3 days before, but you don't fly in an airplane for 3 days. But you do fly in an airplane for 18 hours, and with the time zone changes, you can leave before Shabbos, arrive after Shabbos. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. That's just the halacha. But that, for a Dvar Mitzvah, or Tzarchi Rabim, which this was, for public need, or I can't think of a bigger Tzarchi Rabim with everything that's going on in the world right now to try to make peace with the Muslim world. That's so important. That's the biggest pekuach nefesh. Anyway, but it goes back to something else. I remember, Isaac, someone told me they overheard in the subway someone say, a woman, it doesn't matter what background she's from, not Jewish, pointing to Jewish people, Orthodox Jewish people, and said, look at how selfish those people are. And I was shocked by that, and I was in there and said, well, look, they wear fancy clothes, they wear these expensive hats. And the thing is, in that culture, in that community, they're going to wear shoes that, that they kill each other over, from where this woman was coming from. But the thing is, in a sense, she's right. There's this selfish nature of the Klal Yisrael that has created the Messianic Jewish, not created it, but exacerbated and caused it to grow, fertilized the Messianic Jewish movement that's really Christianity, but sometimes is trying to be more toward Judaism and would be all the way toward Judaism and totally throw it out, except for this issue of selfishness, of closed-mindedness, of forgetting our tachlis to be an or la'amim, an or la'goyim, that we forgot that we're supposed to be a light unto the nations. And so people who are looking for that light, lo gol Yisrael ela k'dei l'steif l'hem gerim. The reason why the Jewish people put in Golos was to make gerim. I'll tell you a story. B'di hayavda. I remember I went to meet my wife's family mean, they were Mormons. That, it's just interesting. The argument I could give to the Messianic Jews, or people who call themselves Messianic Jews who are really selling Christianity, is that don't call it Judaism. You want to call it, Hebrew roots Christianity, maybe is a better name. But the thing is, like, how do you, Tuvia Singer always says, God created Mormons, so the Christians should know how the Jews feel. And it's true, meaning, if Muslims started to go and some of them do like this, and tell Christians that they're really a form of Christianity. They don't use that term because of the semantics issues. Because to the Muslims, Jesus is a prophet. So if they would try to sell Islam but call it Mohammedan Christianity, they wouldn't do that because of this. Muslims are very into semantics. That's a major thing by them, but they're very upset about even using the term Mohammedan, and because it makes it sound like they're worshiping Muhammad, which nobody is suggesting. We're just it's an archaic term because of that, but it's really just saying that they're students of Muhammad, just like I don't know, we have people, whatever, in our community, some people, they say they're Rambamists, they're Maimonidean, they're not worshiping the Rambam, Chas v'Shalom, they're considering themselves students of the Rambam, well, whatever, that's not neither here nor there, but it's like this. I remember, so when we were spending Shabbos there, we had separate quarters, and it was no issue with it. Went to meet my wife's family, whatever, and we were like, we're there for Shabbos. Let's see, are there any Jews around? My wife, her father was a doctor. He knew whatever Jews were in town. They were busy, so we looked up. We saw there was a Messianic synagogue, a church, but this guy was really wanted Judaism, to be honest. And he told me, and we had Shabbos Sudas together, and we were learning together, and he actually asked if I would become the Rav there in town. I was like, no, I was already hired for another position. We're gonna move to Richmond, Virginia, but thank you for the offer. But he really wanted the real thing. He fell back on Yashka because nothing else was offered to him. I mean, that's what's really going on here. This guy, he called Esha Torah. He said, I want to learn an Esha Torah. And they said, well, because your mother's not Jewish, we're not going to teach you. He said, well, why didn't they teach him and make him and have him get rid of the Vodah Zarah and become a Ger Tzedek? And this guy could be a Talmud Chacham, he could be a real Erlich Yid, but he has no hadracha, and because of that, he's a michshol. He's the fact was, his whole congregation, none of them were Jewish, but once in a while, Jews would come in. They said, like Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, someone Jewish came in. They said, "Oh, this is too Orthodox for me," and they didn't want it. And they left, not because it was too Christian, but because it was too frum. It was too close to authentic Judaism. They wanted something like Reform or something. So these type of people are who are creating this thing. I would venture to say, there are more non-Jews who have gone through these Messianic groups, many of which are outright cults, because they were looking for Yiddishkeit, and that was just a stepping stone for them to become Gerei Tzedek, which is why we're in Galus. Lo Gali Yisrael Ela Kadei L'Steifef L'Im Gerim. And if the Jewish community was more welcoming, there wouldn't be this phenomenon. And then those people wouldn't be going after Jewish souls. But the thing is, very few Jews wind up in these places. They try to pad the numbers because for their propaganda. But the fact is, there are many more non-Jews who come to authentic Judaism and are frum through these type of cults, then there are Jews who fall into them. That's first of all. And that by itself should be a sign for us of what we should really be, how we should really be approaching these places, and how we should really be approaching these people, because really this is what, and the thing is, so the Messianics aren't the biggest threat. It's a problem, and we have to deal with it, and this is how we should be dealing with it, by being more welcoming, and by teaching Torah, by spreading light instead of being scared of the darkness. But the real problem and the real threat are the other Messianic group, the Shabtai Tzvi and Jacob Frank groups, which have morphed into Reform Judaism and liberalism and communism and all of these things that are really the problem. That's what we, and that has stolen the vast majority of Jewish souls in the world. And that's the real problem, is these people, is the Frankists, is the Sabbateans, is the communists, is the leftists, who are not liberal at all, the Reform. And again, there are many good Jews in the Reform movement who are just, if they would have proper guidance, they would be great Jews. And in a way, if we would embrace them with an understanding of where they come from, Bahasher Husham, instead of pushing certain things down their throats that they're not ready for, and when they will be ready for it, they will be ready for it, we would accomplish a lot more. But the thing is, there's this closed-mindedness that's just out of control. I heard one of these communist types, Alan Shartok, a real horrible person, who I hope he does tshuva. He was on the radio this morning and he was saying what a chutzpah it is that Donald Trump gave to the Pope the writings of Martin Luther King. I was like, what do you mean a chutzpah? It's so beautiful. He should be celebrating that. That should be... But instead, they try to twist anything good to be bad. It's like Isaiah said, woe to those who call light darkness and darkness light, and sweet bitter and bitter sweet, and good bad and bad good. They're so filled with hatred and bigotry against the president, but I think particularly because he's a Torah president, that it's just it's just a cognitive dissonance. I don't know. Well, thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you later. God bless.